Good morning, race fans. Chris here with Jaeger Bombs Fantasy Sports to bring you another DFS NASCAR live show. This week, the NASCAR Cup Series is in Darlington for the first of two races at the track Too Tough to Tame. And they call it that, as you can see in the background here in my image. There's a lot of rubber marks on that wall. It's going to happen again. It happened at the Xfinity race yesterday. We're going to see it again here at the Cup race, and we got a very interesting one to break down today. If you've been analyzing any of the data so far, it is quite interesting. We look across. I'm just going to jump and we'll just expand this sheet a little bit so we can read the sheet a little bit more. But before we get into that, what we're going to do, we're going to go through some track history. We're going to go through some track type history. We're going to look at some practice times. We're going to look at the DK matrix, lap averages. I'm going to answer any questions that anybody has regarding any of the drivers for DFS betting. We're going to look at some betting on the DraftKings Sportsbook here as well. We're going to build a core for DraftKings and FanDuel. So yeah, let's jump in here. We'll expand the sheet here. There we go. Okay, so first of all, looking at the practice and qualifying, some quite interesting stuff here. And if you were following practice early on, jump over to the practice tab here. You can see Carson Hochevar was the leader, followed by Josh Berry, Eric Jones, Austin Cindric, Justin Haley round out the top five. So that's pretty uncommon. You see this mile and a half to see five drivers like that. Lesser teams, I guess you could say, right up there near the top. So that kind of throws things into a little bit of a question mark, if you will, going into the race on Sunday. And a lot of it, we're going to have to decide, do we trust the practice times, or do we feel like that driver team can make adjustments in this race on this very tough track? Good morning, Liz. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry I missed last week. Got pretty busy. Ended up not being around for more than like 5 minutes, and I didn't want to do a real quick truncated show. So here we are. We're back. Streak ended, but let's start a new one. But yeah, we're going back and looking at practice here. We got some interesting decisions to make now. When we jump over to the lap averages, let's start by looking at the 10 lap averages first. We got Josh Berry up there, Hochevar again. Then we start to see some more of the more higher end drivers. We got Brad Keselowski sitting there in third, William Byron in fourth, Austin Cindric and Noah Gragson were tied there in fifth, followed by Eric Jones, Tyler Reddick, Austin Dillon, and Ryan Blaney to round out the top 10 of those 10 lap averages. So yes, we've got a very interesting race to break down here. And then going into the qualifying, on the pole, we've got William Byron. Right beside him, Ryan Preece. Talked about him a little bit before the race, looking into things we wanted to look at. He is on an excellent streak here, and that's going to have me jump over to the track type history here real quick. He hasn't been great here, but I mean, for the type of equipment that he's in, a 12th, 17th, and 15th, 17th or better in three of the four finishes in the next gen car is pretty darn good, considering. So I paid close attention to him through that practice and qualifying, because he's someone from a value perspective that I would love if he was somehow to qualify back a bit. Well, now that he's qualified second, it changes things a little bit. I mean, he does got the speed. He showed it there. He was second in qualifying, 11th in the overall 1 lap time. But then what I really like to see here is the 20, 25, and 30. So we get some long runs out there. He was second in all those long runs. I mean, there was only 15, 16 cars that ran 20 or more laps in practice consecutively. But seeing that he's right up there is nice. And at 7,200, I wish his price was a little bit lower, but at 7,200 here, provided he doesn't lead any laps, we're looking for, probably around that 36 points. He needs a top 5 finish. It seems a little bit risky. But, if he could lead a few laps, maybe get some projected laps, let's just say maybe he could lead 20 laps, give us 5 fast laps. That now takes us back to looking at just inside the top 10 for him to give us that 5 extra turns. So very risky for me, although looking at his track type history here, it has been spot on recently with 3 straight top 10s, 2 this year, Homestead and Las Vegas, and then Homestead last fall as well. So really good to see there. right behind them on the second row would be Denny Hamlin starting third. Now, interesting, Hamlin after a so-so practice definitely didn't show any long run speed. He was about was he 11th in 5 lap, 12th in 10 lap average. Came out and qualified third, so that's interesting to see. Chase Briscoe right beside him. Again, very similar to what we've seen with Hamlin, was outside the top 10 in terms of overall practice speed, 5, 10 lap averages, and got even worse as the long runs. Now, that's something I think the long runs can probably adjust in. But what we've seen here at this track in terms of trends, and I'm going to jump over to the track history tab here real quick. And it didn't come up, of course. Give me just a second here. We'll get this data up and running. There we go. Things I should have did before we started. One thing I didn't check. Oh well. Time to have a little sip of coffee here. So what we've seen in terms of trends here at this track, especially in something that I've been paying attention to a lot this year, now that we've got a little bit bigger sample size, we've got 3 years, and a lot of these tracks are, we have 2 races per year. So we've got around that 6 races in the next gen car, which was 2022. So we've got 6 races here at Darlington in that next gen car. What we've seen is the correlation only once in those 6 races have we seen it above 0.5, and that was in 2022, the second race, the fall race, 0.558. What we have seen is in all 6 of those races, there has been at least one driver to lead 100 or more laps. That driver every single time has come from the top 5, and 3 times, 3 of the 6, 50% rate, that driver has come from the pole position. So that's some interesting data to look at. And for anyone that's new, maybe to the show, new to Jägerbaum's Fantasy Sports and our NASCAR content, if you jump in, I'm just going to post this here right now. If you're looking for a copy of the cheat sheet that we are looking at now, you maybe want to do your own analysis, stuff like that, build your own models. You definitely can. The link is right there to jump in and grab either a DFS NASCAR package, or you can jump in and grab a all sports package. We're currently covering, we've got NHL, NBA just about to playoffs. We got MLB that has now started. We've got a cheat sheet for that. College basketball is wrapping up. Dane also covers college football, which will be coming again in the fall. Tennis, soccer, golf, and when we're talking about golf, we cover the PGA Tour, and next week, ladies and gentlemen, the Masters. It's about time. We also cover live golf. We do some DP World Tour stuff. So we're covering 10 plus sports. So that all sports package is the price of just 2 sports, and you're going to get everything all lumped in. You're going to get access to our Discord channel. We've got 3 coaches in there ready to help you with whatever sport you are playing. So back to the sheet here on this track history tab. This is kind of where I start my research for the week, start making some notes in terms of what we've seen at this track or other tracks in the past, and kind of go from there. So as we've seen, like I said, the correlation is usually pretty low, which tells us we can see some double-digit place differential. There's going to be some passing. Sometimes there's some crashes, and that can help lower that correlation here as well. But we've seen 6 to 8 drivers gain double-digit place differential in all 6 of those races in the next gen car. So I'm just going to bring over one more thing, and I need to add it to the sheets going forward. I'm just making some final adjustments here, but it looks at all of the tracks in NASCAR. It shows you the classification for each of them, and then it shows you the average correlation from start to finish. And then it also shows you the average amount of drivers that get double-digit place differential at that track. So looking specifically at intermediate tracks, the lowest correlation is Darlington out of all those intermediate tracks, 20th out of 26 tracks overall. And then we also, like we see, it's pretty much the same trend at all intermediate tracks here, where we don't see a lot of double-digit place differential, 6.4 per race. But like I said, we're averaging probably a little bit closer to 7 in the next gen car over those 6 races. So I think, especially looking at the starting grid here, we're going to see some probably in that upwards of 8 to 10 double-digit place differential this week. I think that's very important. Now, with the question marks, I guess you could say, in terms of like the practice speeds, like when we were looking at Homestead specifically, and we see like Kyle Larson up there, he's leading the 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 lap average. You can kind of fairly easily feel confident about getting that driver as our top dominator. This week it's going to be a little bit different. Like I said, looking at the track history tab, we have seen the driver who leads those 100+ laps come from a top 5 starting position in all 6 of the races in the next gen car and 3 times from the pole position. Automatically puts me right on William Byron at the top. I'd love to know who you guys are kind of targeting for your top dominator of the race, because I do think that trend continues where we're going to see a driver who just gets out ahead and leads a bunch of those laps. Now, I think William Byron is early on. He showed some good times in the practice speeds early on, and then as he got into his 15 lap consecutive laps, it kind of fell off. So he's the one I would trust the most. Probably a little bit more of a GPP play. I don't think it's like a lock that he's going to be your top dominator, but he is in the best position to do so. Ryan Preece probably, like I said, he without that we're going to need a top 5 finish from him. That's probably on his high end of finishes. So if he could get some early laps led, then we're looking at like a top 10. I think that's a little bit more realistic. He's got 3 straight top 10s, like I said, on intermediate tracks. So getting the top 10 is fine. So if he could get up there and maybe get 20 to 30 laps led, then I think his value is going to hit too. So he's more of a GPP play of those 2 guys in the front row. I'm going to have a little bit more buyer. Now, looking at the top here, other guys that can maybe battle for some of those laps led, maybe battle for that top dominator. I think Denny Hamlin has a chance. He's been red hot. He dominated last week. Looking at the form here, I think he led 284, 274 laps last week at Martinsville, won that race. Homestead the week before, he started 23rd, ended up finishing 5th, led 15 laps. Las Vegas, didn't have a great race, but on the intermediate tracks, Hamlin has been very close to the most consistent driver that we've seen. And he's had top 10s in 8 of his last 9 on a 1.5-mile tracks, second in average finish to AJ Allmendinger, who's only got 3 races. So it's a little bit smaller of a sample size, but he's got top 10s in 3 straight. So very hot. We talked about Allmendinger at Homestead and Las Vegas with that streak that he's got going on. And then right behind him, Alex Bowman. So Bowman qualified 33rd, didn't really show much speed. I am still definitely on him. I love that mid-tier price on both sites. And he's had top 10s in 5 straight on intermediate tracks as well, including a really solid run at Homestead, which can be sort of a comp track here to Darlington just because of the tire wear. Nap time for the kid. I love it, Kenny. Nice chatting with you, bud. Thanks for tuning in. Excited to hear who your pick to win is, or maybe who your maybe top 2 drivers that you're going to have the most exposure to. Kenny is amazing. He's been with us, Jaeger Bonds Fantasy Sports, as a coach, as a member for longer than I can remember. Pretty much since before I even started this, when we were still working with Roto Pros back in the day. That's a throwback right there. But excellent player when it comes to multi-entry in any sport, and especially NASCAR. Really puts his lineups together good. So definitely pick his brain as well. So I'm 2019. Holy, yeah, that's pre-COVID right there. So that's awesome. Yeah, interested to hear who your maybe couple core drivers are for your multi-entry lineups here today. But yeah, back to Alex Bowman, 5 straight top 10s on intermediate tracks. Now, maybe looks a little bit scary. Like I said, the fact that he is starting 33rd, he's had up and down track history here at Darlington specifically. But as you can see, he is second in top 10s and first in top 20s, so very consistent. He is second among drivers that have 10 or more races on the intermediate tracks since the start of last year, 8.8 average finish. But now that practice speeds they were absolutely terrible. Outside the top 30 overall, he was outside the top 30 in 5, 10, and 15 lap averages. Very, very scary. But starting 33rd, we don't need a whole bunch for him to hit value. And we're going to go look at that on the matrix. I kind of jump around here if you're new to the thing. So if you've got questions about anything specific that I'm covering, any of the tabs that are on the sheet, let me know. If not, I'm just going to keep kind of rolling around, talking about some drivers that really stand out to me today. So we got Alex Bowman. So we're kind of looking for a floor of like 40 to 42 points, and that puts him in the range of a 16th, 17th place finish. Now, the fact that he's got top tens in 5 straight, he's got an 8.8 average finish over 11 races on intermediate since the start of last year. He's shown some upside here. So there's going to be some risk, obviously, because like I said, a lot of these drivers with this track, too tough to tame, very tough track, tire wear. There's not a lot of drivers that are super, super consistent. Like some of these tracks, we see guys that have 5, 6 straight top tens at a specific track. We've talked about it recently. That's not the case here at Darlington because there's a lot of variance in terms of just because it's a very tough track to race on. So keep that in mind. Um, He's got top tens in 2 of his last 4 races here. So I like the upside most definitely. I don't think we're going to see a low ownership at all. I think we're going to see a high ownership, him starting 33rd. I don't think the practice times are going to scare a whole bunch of people off. And we go look at the odds. Um, he is down quite a bit in the odds now. I don't think he's going to be a driver that we're going to be looking to win, but I don't mind top 5 finish maybe as an outside bet for him at plus 380 on DraftKings Sportsbook. But I'm more inclined to use him on both sites in terms of DFS. Um, I like him on FanDuel a lot too. The mid 7K range makes a lot of sense. A little bit cheaper for him there as well. So keep in mind for that. I think what I'm kind of building my core around this week is going to be guys with double-digit place differential that maybe showed a little bit of speed. Kind of check all the boxes. Kyle Larson's up there for me. He showed a lot of upside here. He won the fall race in 2023. He was fourth, so he's been a lot better at the fall race at Darlington than he has here in the first race. But he's shown some big-time upside. Kyle Larson started 19th. Vegas seems to think he is the favorite here at plus 400. William Byron close behind, so that makes me feel a little bit better about Byron as well. The fact that Vegas isn't really too concerned. He's obviously started on the pole, but isn't too concerned about the practice times kind of falling off. And we don't know. Wasn't able to watch the end of practice to kind of see where he was. Now Byron over Blaney is interesting. I think I probably like Blaney a little bit more because he did show. He got out there and he had a 30-lap run. There was about 16 drivers who had a 30-lap run in practice. He was first once you get out there into the 2025 and 30-lap averages. So I think he has a chance to be one of those dominators as well. I think it's just going to take probably through the first stage for him to kind of get up front and challenge for the lead. It may just take a couple of early cautions for him to kind of push his way up to, provided he doesn't cause the cautions. It's been a very, very tough luck start of the year for him. As you can see, he's only got 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s through the first 7 races. Now, that doesn't exactly reflect where he's run, because you can see his average finish is 20. His average running position this year is 13. So that's a difference of 7 right there, which is the highest in the series. So definitely got some bad luck there. So Byron and Blaney. Byron's kind of my early dominator. Blaney, just with that long run speed, I think he has a chance to lead a lot of laps maybe in the second and third stage. Like I said, they're both right there, number 2 and number 3 in terms of odds to win, plus 550, plus 650 respectively. So I don't really want to say I like one more than the other. My model here doesn't like Blaney whatsoever. He's 27th in the model, and a lot of that has to come down to, as you can see, the track type and the track history. Sorry, just had a phone buzzing at me here. Okay, crashed out of both races, so DNFs in 2 straight there. So been kind of tough luck. So I think I probably trust Byron a little bit more to be able to finish the race, if you will. But I kind of like them both the same. I probably split maybe like a 60-40 split with Byron over Blaney a little bit. That's kind of how I feel about that. Christopher Bell is another driver. He's actually been fairly consistent here, top 15s in 5 of his 6 races in the next gen car, with 6 or better in 3 of those races, which is really nice to see in terms of track history consistency. Hasn't DNF'd here since 2020 in the 3rd race. As we know, he's had a hot start to the year. He's got 3 wins already, 2 over the last 5 races. And if we just slide over, so normally he's got an average starting position 6.5 over the last 11 races on the intermediate tracks. But this week he's given us some place differential upside. Him and Logano started 17th, 18th, Larson 19th. So I really like Larson. I talked about that already. Now, Bell seems a little bit risky. As you can see, him and Logano both had terrible, terrible lap averages going into this race. But as we've seen, it was the last week or maybe the week before where the same thing kind of happened with Bell, where the lap averages weren't there. I know Snods really liked him. That's one of our other NASCAR coaches. He ended up really showing a strong run. Now I think Bell's team, they got one of the better teams, one of the better pit crews in NASCAR. I think he can. I don't think he's going to be a lap leader by any means, but I think he's definitely got top five upside here. I think they can figure it out. Again, I don't know what his ownership's going to reflect because of that. We could definitely see a little bit lower ownership. Just the fact that the practice times were absolutely horrid. Same with Logano. I think Logano's obviously going to be lower owned. He hasn't had near the start of the season. He hasn't even had a top five yet. He's one of very few drivers, top drivers, I guess you could say, that doesn't have a top five, and he's only got one top 10 so far this season. So I'm not trusting Logano yet whatsoever. I know there is some place differential upside starting 18th, but he would be more in the 5 to 10% range in terms of exposure if I'm doing multi-entry today. But Bell, just based on his pit crew and how they make adjustments throughout the race, I think Bell's definitely got a chance for a top five. And at 9,500, we're kind of looking for that anyway. We're kind of needing that 48 points would be our floor, and that kind of puts us in a sixth, seventh place finish. I think if he gets inside the top five here without any lap sled, we're looking at probably an optimal lineup kind of deal for Christopher Bell. Now, the same can be said for Logano. I just don't trust it as much as I trust Bell. So Bell over Logano in terms of that mid 9K price range, starting in the same area there as well. So kind of looking at this mid range here a little bit, we talked about Alex Bowman. Eric Jones starting 34th, I think makes a lot of sense. He, in terms of the qualifying practice differential, he's a minus 31, which is just looking at where they qualified versus what their practice time was. Kind of just gives you an indication of, do they have more speed than where they're starting? And then I kind of look at, from that point, I go ahead and start looking at the lap averages. Now, he only got up to a 10 lap run, but he was top 10, top 8 in both of those 5 and 10 lap averages. So I think he can easily clear, and he's probably going to be in that 40% plus owned range just because he showed practice speed. He's got huge place differential upside in that 7,500 range. Hasn't been great for him lately. He's only got 2 top 20s in the last 5 races and only 3 top 20s in 7 races this year. Hasn't got a top 10 in any of the 10 intermediate track races either. So yeah, I like that. Um, Prize picks, that I really do like that one more than 7.5 cars past. Logano less. I think that makes a lot of sense. Logano just really hasn't shown it for me. I just can't put any trust in Logano for any kind of bet or DFS or anything right now. Now, if he goes out and gets up there and wins the race or finishes top five and totally crushes, I'll take that. He just hasn't shown it yet. I'm just not willing to put a whole bunch of exposure to him there. But if I was doing 20 max, we're looking at 2 lineups with Logano at most. But back to Eric Jones here. He's actually been fairly consistent. He won the second race here in 2022. He's finished top 25 or better in all 6 races here with 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s, and looking over at Fantasy Matrix here over to Eric Jones. We're looking for a floor of about 38 points. Well, that's only just inside the top 20. A 19th place finish is going to give us that 5x return for him at 7,500. I think he definitely has upside of 10th to 15th, which is going to obliterate his. You're going to be in that 8-9x range. So he has a chance to definitely, absolutely crush from a points per dollar perspective. That's why I think he's going to be very high owned. Stenhouse, Haley, and Gilliland favored value. Josh Berry, top 10 potential. Yeah, I am with you here, Kenny. I like it. Um, Josh Berry was one that kind of stood out to me. I mean, starting 24th, he has a third place finish here in the first race last year, a couple DNFs in there as well. He's had a really good start to the season. He's got a win, 2 top 5s in the last 5 races, so he's coming in fairly hot, and he showed excellent speed, second overall in time, second, first, and 5, 10, and 15 lap averages. So top 10 potential most definitely, and he doesn't even need that to really be in the optimal lineup. 14th place finish is going to give you a 5x return. I think that's going to be solid. I think if he doesn't crack the top 10, like I think maybe his upside is somewhere in that 6th to 8th, and then 8th to 12th, I think is even reasonable. And we're looking at a 10th place finish is going to give you in that 6x range, 10th, 11th place finish there, provided he gives you a few fast laps, which based on his practice speeds, I think he can even give you some fast laps in there as well. So yeah, he's definitely a top value. So Barry and Jones are very close. Probably Jones a little bit more just because it gives you 10 more place differential points at $300 less, but very close in terms of my exposure to those two. Now, you also mentioned Gilliland and Haley. So let's just slide down and we'll look at them here a little bit. Haley is 14th in my model. That's nice to see. Starting 21st. He's got top 10s, two top 10s, three top 10s in the next gen car here. Very up and down, as you can see. Good trend. He's good here in the first race of the year. Not so consistent at the second race. Whether that means anything or not, I do like that trend. So I think I don't know if I feel like a top 10 is his upside today. He showed it in his 5 lap averages. Started to fall off in the 10 and 15 lap averages, but at 6,200 for him today, I don't think we really need much more than a top 15, like 34 points. That's over five. It's about 5.5x return. 13th place finish, you're starting to look at a 6x return. So somewhere in that 13th to 16th, I think is going to be just awesome for him. It's going to give you excellent value at 6,200. So I'm with you with Haley as well. And then you also mentioned Gilliland right below him, starting 12, scares the living shit out of me. Yes, no, you made a really good point there. When Busher was kind of in that lower end car, and he was just week after week after week, just 8th to 14th, 8th to 14th, just absolutely consistent. Wasn't very high owned, and I don't think he's going to be very high owned whatsoever. His speeds, he's like 12th out of 16th in terms of 20, 25, and 30. I've just myself personally, I'm off of him. If I was going to be on him, I think I'd maybe try and get some exposure on FanDuel where that place differential isn't nearly as important as just the finishing position. But looking at 6,100 for Gilliland here, 30.5 points. We're looking at about a 13th place finish. I would even take a little bit less than that. So 13th to 15th, I think is totally fine. Starting 12th, I think, fall back 3 places. But for me, I think he's more like a 16th to 18th. So I'm going to leave that one to you, Kenny. And he's going to be super low owned, and he may be your path to glory today. But yeah, good luck with that for sure. But I'm definitely with you on the other two. Going to be fairly high owned for me as well in terms of the value plays. Other guys that maybe stand out in terms of practice speeds, you got Zane Smith starting 16th. I think I'd rather have Zane Smith than Gilliland. Now, that's probably where your ownership pivot is. I don't know if you've considered Zane Smith or not, but he was 6th, 5th, and 6th in the 20, 25, and 30 lap averages when there was 18 drivers, 16 to 18 drivers out there doing those long runs like that. And then 10 and 15 lap averages, he showed top 15 speed. So I think he can definitely jump over here. We're looking for 30 points somewhere in there. So like a top 15 finish for him, I think is kind of what we're looking for him to hit value. And if he gets up there somewhere and gives us like a 12th to 14th place finish, which we've seen the chaos happen here. It's a tough track. We could see, 5, 6 drivers wrecked out of the race, get some DNFs, which is going to push some of these guys up. So if he can avoid some of that, I think there's definitely opportunity for that 6x return for him. And I don't think he's going to be super high owned. I think he's going to be higher owned than Gilliland for sure, just because he showed those practice speeds looked very good as well. But so yeah, there is quite a few value guys today, which does help us get up here in the top and maybe get your William Byron and Blaney if you want an early dominator, late dominator in the same lineup. And then maybe Kyle Larson. I think you can kind of maybe fit those three with a value. Now looking over on DraftKings, let's just go plug that in and just see what that looks like. With those three, it leaves us 66.30. So that kind of takes us down into that range we were just talking about. With a Zane Smith at 6K, pushes us back up. It's a little bit risky. I don't think I'd mind, looking at some other guys that we're going to need to make this happen. Austin Dillon showed top 10 speed in the 10 and 15 lap averages. 9th overall in practice. Again, another driver that hasn't had a great start to the season. 4 top 20s in 7 races, has failed to get a top 10 yet. His teammate Kyle Busch also not having a great. So the team in general isn't having a great start to the season. Now he showed some upside back at the start here and before the next gen car, but it's been pretty murky since then. And we're really looking for out of him at 6,300. I believe we're kind of looking for inside of a top 15 for that to pay off for us. So that superstars and scrubs, I don't think is fully there for us. I'm probably going to want to pick two of these three drivers in Blaney, Byron, and Larson, and then jump down into that mid range, just so that we're not jamming three drivers in that 6,500 and below range, or let's just say sub 7K range, guys. I don't think we're going to go there, or I'm not going to go there. I'm more inclined to take, let's just say Blaney and Larson, for instance. And I think we can mix this around if you're looking to do multi-entry. But if I was doing one lineup, I think I'm more inclined to go Bowman with one of these guys as well. Even then, you can get your Josh Berry in there. You don't really necessarily need the Zane Smith. I think we can come down here and go a different direction as well. Justin Haley down there. There's your Gill and Zane Smith, that sort of thing. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at my core for DraftKings. All right. Any other questions about any drivers going forward? I'm going to wrap this up in about a couple minutes here. I'm going to kind of build out a one driver didn't talk about Kyle Busch, starting eighth. He's actually been fairly consistent with 11th or better with two top tens in the last four races here after three straight DNFs in 2021 and 2022. Has shown some consistency here at this track. Like I said, they've been struggling this year, but he did show some speed, some good long run speed. So he could be an outside chance of a top five finish today. If that's the case, I really like him on FanDuel at 8,200. That's just a nice value for him. I mean, Logano stands out in terms of those prices, but I'm not trusting that. I don't care if it's cheaper. Blaney makes a little bit more sense than Byron. So if I'm splitting them up here, I have to decide on my exposure between the two. I like Blaney a little bit more on FanDuel. I like Byron a little bit more on DraftKings. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put Blaney in my lineup with Kyle Larson over on FanDuel. And then just looking at another FanDuel value, like I talked about, Alex Bowman could burn me today, but just his consistency on the mile and a half tracks recently, five straight top tens. I'm kind of getting away from those practice speeds scaring me. I just really like that. So I'm inclined to have a little bit more exposure to him on FanDuel at 7,500, but I don't mind that $8,300 price tag on DraftKings either, where place differential is obviously worth a little bit more. Okay, and in terms of bets over here, I do like getting the Denny Hamlin plus 800. I do like experienced drivers a little bit more in terms of this track just being tougher. They manage tire wear. Denny Hamlin's always been really good at managing tire wear. He is one of only two drivers to have back-to-back or top tens in both races last year. He's one of the, I would say, more consistent drivers at this track. And one other thing that really just shows the, I guess we'll call it parity at this track, and not one driver really dominating. When we look at average finish over the years at some of these tracks, there's like usually one or two drivers who are like 3 or 4 or 5 spots in terms of their average finish ahead of the rest of the field. There are going down to Chase Elliott at 12.5 average finish, up to William Byron. That's 8 drivers between 10.3 and 12.5 average finish, which is absolutely incredible. We don't really see that anywhere else. So I guess what that's kind of telling me in terms of lineups is you don't really need one driver that is, say, 60 or 70% owned in your lineup. I think you're a lot safer at Darlington, spreading it out a little bit more and maybe having 4 drivers at 40% owned versus 1 or 2 drivers who are very, very, very high owned, unless you're just really sold on someone. But there is a lot more variance here at Darlington. So that's kind of the way I look at the lineup construction versus other intermediate tracks specifically. So it's kind of the way I'm looking at the lineup construction today. Like I said, I like Denny Hamlin here at the plus 800. That's a nice number. If I'm going outside of that, you could Christopher Bell plus 1,600. Now, I talked about liking him for DFS, starting 17th, maybe looking at a top 5 finish with 12 double-digit place, or 12 place differential points kind of in there. I don't know if he's going to compete for the win, but a guy that's won 3 times this season, has one of the best teams in NASCAR. Plus 1,600 seems like a really nice number there as well. So those would probably be my two favorite bets. I don't mind a Josh Berry plus 260 down here for a top five. Yeah, they don't really trust Logano either, as you can tell, down here at plus 2,200. But going up here, they really like the speed Kyle Busch showed, plus 1,500. He is sixth in terms of outright betting here. But yeah, Denny Hamlin plus 800, Christopher Bell plus 1,600. And then if I'm looking at one of these top guys, usually we're getting Kyle Larson at these tracks where he looked good. Now, probably because Byron is starting first in this race, where Larson has to come through the field to get up front, I do like Byron a little bit more. Now, if you're on a site where you can get head-to-head matchups, that's maybe something to look at as well. I do like Byron over Larson, Byron over Blaney, really on that Byron train today. So all right. Well, I'm going to wrap things up. I thank you all for tuning in. We're going to have a good Darlington day here. If you have any questions when you're building your lineups leading up to the race this afternoon, you can either comment on the video below. You can jump on our Discord. You can also jump in as a free member and ask me questions as well. If you're not quite sold on buying the package yet, definitely jump in. Have a discussion with me or any of our other coaches. See if it's something that you like, and then go from there. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Jaeger_bombs9. Other than that, thank you for tuning in. Let's have a great race, everyone.